Good evening, YouTube. My name is Dan, and I'm the coach of your St. Louis Rampardos. Now, last week in the GBA, the Rampardos head smashed their way to a nice 1-0 victory on the back of Tesla, our Jolteon, taking down Old Man Tup and the Pittsburgh Piratas. We have now moved to 3 wins and 2 losses, and are tied for first place in the division with the Borussia Don Fan and El Scissor, and of course Jim Lear Gio in his recent surge, and the San Francisco Giants. Now this week, we have a new opponent. His name is CrimsonCBad. He's the coach of the Detroit Steel Wings, and he has started the season off 0-5. Unfortunately for Crimson, he has started off a bit rocky despite having what I consider to be a pretty good draft. And we have a pretty tough matchup here ahead of us this week taking on Crimson. Now, as always, despite the fact that he is 0-5, I do not consider that to be any sort of relevance here. I think the important part is that he is a good battler. He's got a good team. And I think he's looking to pick up his first win of the season. And as the Rampardos coach, it is my goal and my objective to make sure that does not happen this week, and we're able to pick up the W. Now, I will say this, my puppy just underwent surgery, the team puppy, so if you hear her crying a little bit in the background, I do apologize. She may whine quite a bit, and I may have to get up to kind of help her out. So I'm just letting you guys know that there's a chance that there might be a break in the video because of that. She's kind of wandering around, and poor girl, she had surgery. Nothing major, she got spayed, so I guess that's kind of major. But anyway, let's jump into our teams here. We're going to take down the teams, kind of break down what both my team and CrimsonCBad's team have, and basically how we're going to try to combat that to hopefully come out with a W. Obviously, Crimson's team has a number of different threats. His first round pick was Latios. He's got Infernape as well, which is obviously a mixed potential sweeper. Really high base speed with 108 base speed. He's got Suicune, one of the hardest walls to take down because of its setup ability with Calm Mind, Sleep Talk, Rest. Obviously, it could carry Scald as its main offensive move. One thing to keep in mind is it also gets Air Slash, I believe, which could potentially put a hole in our plans. He's also got a Staraptor, base 100 speed, incredibly offensive presence from Staraptor with Brave Bird. Crocodile, very good Pokemon, potentially stopping our Volt Switches. Also having Sucker Punch, Pursuit, Knockoff, number of different dark moves that I can utilize. He's got a Roserade, which can set up Toxic Spikes. It could also be specially defensive. It can be offensive with Technician, Hidden Powers. It can be carrying a Life Orb offensive. It has the Natural Cure ability. Number of different things that Roserade can do. It's a very versatile Pokemon. He's got a Registeel, physically defensive, potentially specially defensive, bulky Pokemon. Doesn't really do too much besides the bulk side of things, but it is a very bulky Pokemon that carries Seismic Toss, which could be problematic. He's got an Electros, often seen with Assault Vest. Electros is often seen. It could be physical, a special, a little bit slow, but a very good Pokemon nevertheless. And Audino, who I believe he picked up as a free agent. Audino has Cleric abilities, being able to run Heal Bell, Wish, Protect, etc. And last but not least, he has his Mega Charizard X, which in my opinion is one of the best Mega evolutions in the GBA format. So, without further ado, we're going to break down our team building here. I'm going to be a little bit lengthier than I think I normally am to try to give you guys the explanation. Someone said that I seemed a little bit rushed in the last video, so assuming everything is well with the puppy, we should be able to get a pretty in-depth analysis here in terms of my logic on the team building. So, first threats, looking at his team, I see the Latios, obviously problematic. I luckily have 2 Pokemon that happen to respond to Latios and Latios very well, Mega Aggron and Sylveon. So that's going to be the focal piece and the core piece of this team moving forward. Infernape, obviously a very offensive Pokemon, can be offensive from both sides of the spectrum, also very fast. Suicune is something I'm going to need to keep in mind because Suicune could probably serve as his primary Victini check if I ran something like a Banded V-Creates, things like that. It's really the best thing that he has to take on my Victini, aside from maybe Latios, but Banded V-Create actually has a chance to OHKO Latios after Rock, so unless he brings a physically defensive Latios, Victini's going to be able to put in some potential work. And I'm just kind of talking not about my team, but about my thought process here going into my team building. This is probably what Crimson would think in my mind. He's got that Roserade potential bring. I definitely can see that Roserade coming, but that's one of those maybes. I think Crocodile definitely has some viability on his team. I think he really likes Crocodile. I think the fact that this ground type that could stop my potential electric types from volt switching, things like that. The dark typing is nice as it matches up nicely against the psychic type Victini. He can also, you know, just, it gets aerial ace as well, and it does outspeed Heracross unless I'm scarfed. So those are some things to kind of keep in mind. Also handles Uxie pretty well. Earthquake is going to do about 30% to Aggron depending on his spread from like a defensive and Aggron's perspective. I really do think he needs to bring Registeel this week, as he doesn't really have a reliable answer to Sylveon, nor you know, taking big hits from any huge wall breakers like Salamence, for example. So I think Registeel is a must bring on Crimson's end. If he doesn't bring it, then it really opens doors for Sylveon to kind of rip through his team, as his only response, his only resistance to fairy types is indeed that Registeel and the Roserade. But Roserade's not entirely that bulky. Sylveon does get Psy Shock, HP Fire he might think I might bring, of course, for the Registeel, things like that. So I really think Registeel is one of those must brings. If not, defensive Roserade, I guess, could potentially solve some issues there. But he really needs to make sure he has a response to Salamence, potentially even Victini, obviously, anything that's not V-Create, and of course, like I said, that Sylveon response. So I would not be surprised if that Registeel does come. I think that Mega Charizard X has a lot of viability. I didn't mention his Dusclops earlier, but I think that Charizard could potentially be pretty scary, especially as able to set up. So Stealth Rocks are very crucial for us this week to bring those Stealth Rocks, set them up on the field, and so on and so forth. Dusclops is there, potentially Eviolite, Will-O-Wisper, kind of a funky type Pokemon, and Audino obviously is mostly there to be a defensive Pokemon. My team is actually built with the thought that Audino is not going to be coming, but I do have something prepared for Audino as well. So before we jump into my team breakdown here, I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below whether you want me to be a little bit more in depth like I just was and kind of explaining my moves and stuff and thought process, or if you'd rather me just kind of go for the straight 10-minute team press conference. Let me know in the comments below. So anyway, we're gonna keep it rolling here. So leading off our team this week is gonna be that Sylveon. Bella put in a lot of work so far. I brought a lot of times as a choice Scarfer. Not really a defensive set. He might be thinking I'm gonna bring a defensive set to take care of that Latios. We're actually bringing the choice Scarfer. We have just enough speed to outspeed Latios at max speed, timid. We have all of our special attack investment, just a tiny bit of HP, so we make sure we're speed creeping properly. Hyper Voice actually does OHKO the Latios, the Infernape after rocks. It's gonna do a tremendous amount. I believe it OHKOs the Crocodile as well. And it really rips holes through pretty much everything on his team, including some of these faster threats. It's going to do about 75% to that Charizard X. So this Sylveon could put in a ton of work. We're carrying the Hyper Voices. That is our primary play. Psyshock is there for the Roserade and just general if we want to try something different. We got the Baton Pass there, of course. We could Baton Pass out, gain the momentum, kind of taking advantage of the speed stat, the Choice Scarf, and we have the Heal Bell there as a utility move in case something goes wrong, something gets status. You'll see on my team builds, I always like to carry Heal Bell because you never know what's going to happen. An untimely Scald Burn, a random Thunder Wave you weren't expecting, that could come in handy and really save us the game with something else that might not appreciate the status a whole lot. But we do have something to handle the status as well. So I think this Sylveon's going to do a lot of work. This is definitely a late game Pokemon. I'm not going to bring it in until mid to late game. It's meant to surprise, pick up a surprise kill against something like the Latios once I scout out what Scarfies he's bringing. Definitely a lot of potential for dual Scarfers on his team. Potential Latios dual Scarf, potential Infernape dual Scarf. He could try to benefit from both of those. We'll have to see what he decides to do once we're in that matchup. Now, our second Pokemon we're going to be bringing is, of course, Megatron, Aggron, who has done a lot of work this season. It might not show in the kill column, but I'm really proud of how Aggron has performed so far. And this week, we're going to actually bring a pretty standard tanky set. I've been running similar EV spreads every single week. We run our max HP, we put a ton of investment into special defense so we can take special hits as well, and we run an Impish Nature to boost our defense. The reason why we're running an Impish Nature is because the Natures are going to boost a stat by 10% based on their base stat, right? And Aggron has such a high base defense stat, you're getting more out of the Nature by using Impish as opposed to using something like Calm or something like that to boost my special defense. Similarly, how you would typically run a Jolly Crobat with less EVs in its speed to kind of make up an HP, so on and so forth. So we're going to be carrying the Stealth Rocks this week. As I said, it's very important for the Charizard X to hit him for 50% on the switch-in. We've got Avalanche there, which does do a tremendous amount to the Latios. It's also going to hit the Staraptor, the Crocodile, the Roserade. It's obviously going to hit the Charizard X neutral, which is very nice. We've got Earthquake on there as well, which is going to hit that Registeel, which does not have reliable recovery outside of rest. It's going to hit the Charizard X as well with the Earthquake. We've got it there for just general damage on the Infernape as well. Hit that thing super effective. After rocks, I think we have a chance to actually knock it out with that Earthquake. And we have Toxic there as our last move, so that way we can actually hit this Suicune if he's not carrying a rest Sleep Talk Suicune, then we can Toxic it, wear it down, it keeps it from walling us. Also, it's nice to hit things on the switch with Toxic, potentially wear something down like the Latios. Again, if he does not bring on Dino, outside of Roserade, he has no way to heal off status, so you're going to see a lot of status-heavy Pokemon on my team this week, really trying to take advantage of Crimson and the fact that I don't think he's going to bring that Audino. Now, our next Pokemon, Shell Shocked, one of the best free agent acquisitions in the GBA of all time, picking up Blastoise, an undrafted Pokemon, undrafted free agent, adding it to the team to take place of Fortress this season, and Blastoise has put in so much work, and I look for it to do a lot of work this week as well. We're bringing another max defense Blastoise, basically to take the hits best on the physical side. It gives me a better switch into Staraptor if I need it. It gives me something that could take hits from Infernape. He could run Special Ape with Grass Knot, which is a very possible option, but after Leftovers, it's not a 2-KO unless he's super duper invested in his special attack. It also gives me something to take Side Shocks from the Latios, and it gives me something to hit or to take hits from that Charizard X. Again, Charizard X is a huge problem, especially if it sets up. That is why we're carrying Scald, Toxic, Rapid Spin for hazards in case he decides to hazard stack with Roserade. And last but not least, we have the Haze there, which is going to allow us to remove any potential stat boost that the Suicune or maybe the Charizard X have gone for, whether it's those Dragon Dances or whether it's those Calm Minds. We're going to be able to get rid of those status or those increases by using Haze. Really cool move on Blastoise. I've used it on War Turtle in the past. I really think it could put in a lot of work for us this week. Now, the next Pokemon is our captain, of course, Victini, who, in all honesty, almost didn't make the team this week, but I felt that I could be a little bit creative with it, and we could try to make it to do something really neat. So Victini is actually running a max HP, max defense Victini. Now, Victini has such a unique typing, and being both fire and psychic type, gives it some weaknesses, but also gives it some really cool coverage options in terms of things it could take hits from. It absolutely shuts down Infernape if it's not carrying Earthquake, which he might not carry because he does need to make sure he has the proper coverage to hit things like Heracross, which obviously fire moves. He's got to make sure he's carrying a grass type move because I do have Quagsire, Golurk, and of course Blastoise. So all those things really come into effect here, and I think he might not bring Earthquake. So we might be able to totally wall his Infernape with our Victini, which is of course carrying the Leftovers. We also could take hits from the Latios. We could take the Psyshock, we could take a Draco probably. After the -2 drop, we'll be feeling pretty good about that. And most importantly, if he does not bring Earthquake on Charizard X, we do really, really well. People tend to forget that Victini does have base 100 across the board. So Dragon Claw from Max Attack Adamant Charizard is only doing about 35% to this Victini. After Leftovers recovery, that's like a 4 or 5 hit KO. About a 4 hit KO, unless he Dragon Dances on us. Now, the best thing about this Victini is the fact that we do have the Zen Headbutt, which does OHKO Infernape after rocks. It does OHKO Roserade after rocks. We've got the U-turn there for just general momentum. Thunder Wave, of course, to paralyze things like that Charizard X to open up the door for other team members to sweep. And last but not least, the Will-O-Wisp, which is of course there to potentially catch the Crocodile off guard. It definitely would not be expecting the Will-O-Wisp. We have that increased accuracy chance through the Victory Star ability, and I think that Victini can actually put in quite a bit of work being a physically defensive Victini, something I didn't know I would actually bring this season, but I'm really looking forward to using it. The next Pokemon on our team is probably the biggest offensive threat we're bringing this week. That is going to be our Salamence, our Earhart here. Now, we butchered last week a little bit. Had we set up 2 Dragon Dances, we would have probably got 4 kills with Salamence. But this week, we're coming back with a vengeance. You're carrying that Choice Scarf with the Moxie. We're going to outspeed everything on his team except for Scarfed Infernape and Scarf Latios. Those are the only 2 things that he could bring that will outspeed us. We will speed tie potentially with the Charizard X after a Dragon Dance, and we will speed tie with a Scarf Staraptor if he's running Jolly instead of Adamant. But either way, this Mence can put in a lot of work. After I scout out his Choice Scarfers, Mence just goes off on his team. We're going to be carrying the Outrage, the Earthquake, of course. Outrage hits everything except for Registeel, and then the Earthquake is there for Registeel, of course. Dragon Claw in case I don't want to lock myself into Outrage. If it's mid-game, we just click Dragon Claw instead. And Tailwind as a failsafe, potentially help out the next member of our team or another member of the team, potentially even Aggron or maybe Victini later on, just to get that extra speed that we might need to take out a surprise Scarfer mid to late game. Now, the last Pokemon on our team, I debated quite a bit against. I was tossing between things like Uxie, things like even Quagsire, obviously, which is a very good Charizard X counter if he doesn't bring HP Grass, which he might do. But I decided to go with Heracross here, and the reason why is because he has a lot of bulk on the slower end of the spectrum. He's got this Electros, an Audino, a Dusclops. He's got this Suicune here. All those things that Heracross does outspeed, it can hit him really hard. So we're actually bringing Adamant, Choice Banded, Heracross, Max Attack, a lot of HP investment, and just a little bit of speed to speed creep that Suicune, in case he does throw a little bit of speed on the Suicune. We've got the knockoff there for the Dusclops. It does 2-hit KO Dusclops, even if he's max defense. We have the Guts ability, so we can take those burns, Scald burns, whatever it may be. We've got the Close Combat Megahorn. Both of those are going to actually 2-hit KO the Suicune after rocks, depending on what item he has. If he has leftovers, he might be able to live barely based on a roll, but it really looks good in our favor. And Earthquake is there, of course, to hit the Charizard if we want to hit that super effective after he Mega Evolves. But that is the squad. Heracross is there, designed to break down the walls with that Choice Band. There is not a single switch-in on his team that can take on the Heracross safely. He's going to be playing a coin flip every time Heracross comes out. He's got to predict either Close Combat or Megahorn. Something is going to take a ginormous hit regardless, even if it's resisted. It's going to put in a lot of work. And I really look forward to this Heracross set. Scarf Ments. We've got the defensive, physically defensive Victini, which does handle a lot of his team. We've got the Blastoise here, physically defensive Blastoise, of course. The Aggron, Mega Aggron, hopefully going to set up those Stealth Rocks and pick up a kill as well. And then Sylveon, our Scarfed Sylveon, dual Scarfers this week against Crimson and the Detroit Steel Wings. So that's going to be it for me, guys. My name is Dan. I'm the coach of your St. Louis Rampardos. So I'm going to get the heck out of here. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.